having me.
Now, Senator Shehu Sani, would like you to tell us more about this new Citizens Action movement, the motivation behind this movement, and why you feel this is the right time to set up that movement.
Thank you once again for having me in your program. Well, the Nigerian Labour Congress has a history and a tradition of aligning itself with the civil rights movement in Nigeria, so that there will be synergy in the fight for justice, for democracy, and for equity in the country. And it has started in the last 15 to 20 years, where labor and civil society leaders meet together to fight a common cause. This time around, there is a new leadership in the Nigerian Labour Congress, and they have adopted the same tradition that was being implemented by the predecessor leaders. And now you have a new set of civil rights activists working with a new set of leadership in Nigerian Labour Congress. And the whole idea was, how can the two institutions synergize to fight to ensure that our democracy, our constitution, and the laws of our country are being protected? And how can the citizen and our people be protected from the excessive of power? And when we sat down, the whole idea is, let us have this synergy to ensure that the country's democracy is protected, and the new set of leaders that will take over position of power govern this country in line with the rule of law and the dictates of our constitution. So basically, this is it. But specifically now, election took place in Nigeria, and the two major opposition parties, the PDP and Labour, are in court. Now, what can we do at this very time as a civil rights movement? What we can do now is to ensure that for those who go to court, they get justice. And for those who won fairly, they rule in line with the constitution of the country and the rule of law. Basically, that is what the movement is all about, from my own understanding.
About the press release that the new Citizens Actions movement released recently, it's quite lengthy, but it is a robust summary of the dropping of the ball, electorally speaking, of the electoral process from the very start to the very end. My question now is, what is the way forward? What will this group be doing in order to initiate changes into, is it the electoral act, the electoral law? What are the actionable movements that could come from this movement? In a democracy, naturally you have an opposition that will raise issues, criticize government, and agitate against policies and programs of government. But civil society take on the noble cause in terms of focusing on the ideals and the ideas. The whole concept of synergizing the civil rights or civil society movement and the labor is, first of all, to have a front, a sort of a vanguard that will ensure that the game is played according to rule as far as our country is concerned. And this involves advocacy, creating awareness, putting pressure on government, and also putting both all the arms of government, the judiciary, the executive, and legislature on check. And civil rights is movement, civil society movement is not a partisan organization, and people come from different political tendencies and ideas. So the whole thing is, you can see the lengthy statement that was made. It's more of the guidelines, the manifesto, and the principles of what this movement is going to be and what it's going to focus on. Nigeria had an election, and there are people who are aggrieved. There is people who are aggrieved at the presidential election and also at the state elections that took place. Both the ruling party in some states have gone to court. The opposition parties have gone to court in most of the states. So in such an atmosphere, you need a movement, you need a group that is non-partisan, one that will look on issues, focus on issues, and then ensure that whatever that Nigeria is moving towards should be the one that is in line with our aspiration and the laws governing our country, and to ensure that all those institutions also work in line with those principles that set them up. If you are one of the parties that have gone to court, there is a need for you to believe in the judicial system, and if you have issues, you raise it. And if you are the one who won fairly, at the end of the day, you have a duty to ensure that you govern according to the laws of our country. And we believe that setting up such a movement will give Nigerians a forum, a voice, for which they can agitate, campaign, and also hold those in the position of power to account. So that is basically the reason why such movement was established. It wasn't the first time. It was done during Obasanjo administration, Mari Eradua and Jonathan Goodluck, and it's also here now. So it's basically to protect our democracy and to make sure that power is being operated in line with the laws and the constitution of our country, and nothing more above that. I can understand that I have had criticisms basically from those from the ruling party, thinking that this is a new front to fight the government. But when you are fighting injustice, when you're fighting iniquity, when you're fighting abuse of power, basically it is those that are in the position of power that will be feel that it is about them. But fighting for justice, for equity, for fairness is about everybody. At least those who are in power in the last 8 years will be out of power on 29th of May. And it is the law that will protect them. It is the constitution that will protect them. And it is also the law and the constitution that will hold them to account for what they have done. And we also have a new set of leaders that are coming in. There is a president-elect, there are governors-elect, senators and House of Reps members-elect, State Assembly-elect. They also have to know very well that there is a front here where Nigerians that are non-partisan can come together under a single platform to fight for what is just and real. And if we don't do that, we leave criticisms, opposition to partisan institutions like the political parties, we will have much of a problem, because a politician will always focus on his interest, prioritize on his interests, and where that is being met, and he simply compromises. But I don't think that's the way we should. Let us not forget that this democracy was a product of struggle. People fought for it. People like me, went to jail in the struggle for democracy under military rule. And we made sacrifices, and we are the ones who brought democracy to Nigeria. So we can't just fold our arms, even if though we don't join political party and contest it, we can't just fold our arms and see this democracy simply dissolve on the platform of our own complacency and refusal to do what is right or stand up for what is just. So I believe that as Nigeria moves towards a new government, the need for them to be reminded that they have won election to serve people and not a war that they have fought and to conquered everyone, and as such they should rule according to what their mind dictates for them. So basically, this synergy between labor and civil society, the importance of it is now, and that will simply help the populace and the country.
I'd like us to talk a bit more about the criticism that you said you've received. Obviously, we know that the ruling party would say that what you're doing is probably an attempt to topple Nigeria's democracy. They've also talked about people trying to impose an interim national government. They've talked about the fact that the opposition are sore losers. And then when you talk about being impartial, just how impartial are you, considering the fact that you're also a member of a political party and that you also tried to participate in this election process, even though you lost out at the primaries? Can you react to that, please?
Well, the good side about it is I was a founding member of the ruling party, and I was out of it. And the ruling party was once an opposition that protested, an opposition that never accepted it lost election, an opposition that went to court on many occasions challenging the victory of others. So it's what they did as when we were in opposition in those days. So you can't say that for all that you have done, for example, the president of the country, Buhari, the only election he has accepted was the one he won. He has been contesting election since 2003. He has been on the street protesting. Many times he never attended even the Council of State meeting invited by Obasanjo, Umaru Musa Yar'Adua, and Jonathan Goodluck. What are we talking about? They have set the stage for people not to accept when they lose election. That is the fact of the matter. And the fact that I was a member of a political party does not deny me the right to also express my own opinion. Like I've said, when we were fighting Babangida under the military, when we were fighting Abacha, where are all these people who are calling themselves Democrats and politicians? Where were they? I was in the forefront of those who fought for June 12. We brought this democracy. I didn't go to cell, police cell. I went to jail as a man who was convicted to life imprisonment. And I came out. So will anybody now come and look at me and say because I was a member so I shouldn't talk? This democracy is a product of what we fought. Luckily enough, the president-elect was also one of those who are in the trenches. So he cannot, in all right senses, look at others and say they shouldn't criticize him. As much as he has produced governors, ministers, senators, he was also one of those who inspired people to come out and protest and criticize government. If there's anybody in Nigeria who taught Nigerians how to criticize and oppose government, is the president-elect himself. And I believe that is also a credit to him. So it is what you have planted, the seed you have planted that have now germinated, and you should tolerate it. If he has been in the trenches and other people are in the trenches, I think he should know that this is the constituency which he came from. And I think it is in the interest of democracy that we have both an opposition political party doing what they need to do and civil society also standing up for what is right and just. If anything will happen to this democracy, who are going to fight for it? Who are going to stand up? Who will be on the street? Certainly, it is going to be this institution. So as far as I'm concerned, what the ruling party has failed to do is to go back and recall the history of where they come from and how they emerged and become leaders today. I know that when you are in power, you seem to forget the road that took you to power. You seem to forget all that you have suffered, the persecution you suffered and whatever, because now the comfort, the liquor of power has gotten into you. But we will remind them always that once you are on the throne, you have a duty to tolerate and to accept and embrace the opposition, because opposition is the oxygen of democracy. If there is no opposition, the nation goes under autocratic rule, and that is not what we want. So I have the right to be in a political party, contest election, whether I win or lose. If it's losing election, Buhari has lost election 3 times and is the president today. So it's not even time for the opposition to start mocking people that they have lost election. So it is for them to appreciate that. They are, despite being an opposition for a long time, they also emerged and have won election. They should be grateful to God. And the same thing with others. If you are an opposition, you lose election today, don't lose faith. You can still contest and you will win as far as, but when people go to court, it's because the Constitution permits them to court. They have the right to go to court. But nobody has gone to court challenging election in Nigeria like Buhari. He's been to court 2003, he's been to court 2007, he's been to court 2011. He has virtually no contact, no link with any president because he lost election. So he taught Nigerians, he taught Nigeria, he taught the opposition how to refuse to accept election result. So it's what he has planted that has come to haunt his own political party. I was a member of Alliance for Democracy with the president-elect, and I know very well that as that party, we never align ourselves with any ruling party. So it is a fact to tell the president-elect that there are still protesters and those who will certainly criticize his own government, and they are not his enemies. They are part of him that he has left, and he is now wearing a new uniform as a president. But in fact, nobody can deny any Nigerian the right to express his opinion. So losing election is simply a phase in life. You lose today, you can win tomorrow. And you win today, you can also lose tomorrow. And there is nothing wrong with that. I am not the governor of Kaduna State today, but I can be tomorrow. After all, those who are today, well, some times ago, were not governors of Kaduna State. So this is simply politics. But the fact is that whoever found himself in a position of power should know that it is the citizen's right to ask him questions, to interrogate him, to put him on microscope and periscope and ensure that he does what he's supposed to do as a constitutionally elected leader.